The Miami Hurricanes have several players who are entering prove-it years in 2025. Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Because Mario Cristobal, I should say, has done, really well the past couple of transfer portal cycles. But at a certain point, you don't want to have to be taking a dozen transfer portal players every year. You really want that foundation to be through your organic recruiting, as I think it is and it can be. But you've got players now, classes of 2023, 2024, top 10, top 5 classes who really need to become foundational pieces. I am Alex Donno, University of Miami alumnus, co-host of Locked On ACC and writer for Canes County at Rivals. And thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Nissan, the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Stay with us for the Armada Team of the Week later on in this episode. And on this loaded episode, we'll talk about Miami's defensive line approach. We'll talk about transfer portal needs that could still be there, and maybe they won't be after spring football. And yeah, we'll talk about this prove it year. And folks, it's Tuesday. You know what that means. It's a Truth Teller Tuesday here on Locked On Canes. And Bruce Warner and I are matching today. We're like twins. Truth Teller.
Yeah, look at this. Listen, I'm not talking about the D-line today. These people have had enough of me talking about the defensive line. But I do like talking about it in terms of the new defensive line coach, Damione Lewis, who we still have to work on getting him on the show. But I'm going to text him in a little while because Damione tells me, I asked him, do you want to come on the show? And he said, absolutely. He didn't even say yes. He bold capital letters. So listen, I'm going to get my friend on the show. He's the coach. But I love him being in there with the D-line because I know him. I know he's aggressive. He's got that sap type mentality where you just you can't say the word ASS, but kick ass. I said it.
Hey, we
just fired me, I guess. It's in a dictionary. They got to be more aggressive and more attacking, and he's going to bring that element along with Jason Taylor because they have to have that this year. Everybody I talk to, and people know I talk to most of these players, the same thing. All the defensive backs tell me the same thing. Without the front line taking care of the quarterback, they're not going to do much damage. They're not going to have picks. They're not going to have balls knocked out. They're going to be beaten. And so I expect the level of the defensive play this year to be so much better. It's not even funny.
Yeah.
A, because of the talent. B, because of the experience now, a year or so under these kids' belts, like Frederic and people like that. And because of the coaching staff. I believe in this staff, that's for sure. Wasn't too thrilled about last year's staff, but this year, I'm all in.
Yeah, and let's talk. And a lot of these defensive players, Bruce, have a big opportunity and a certain amount of pressure, right? And I mean, first of all, do you agree with what I said in that I'm really happy that the last couple of years Miami's done really well through the transfer portal, but I want to get to a point, and obviously the portal is always there, and Miami's always going to be an attractive spot for players in the portal. But I want the foundation to be organic recruited players. And to me, this is the year where Mario Cristobal's first full recruiting cycle was 2023. So those guys are entering their third year, either true juniors or redshirt sophomores. 2024 class, which was stacked, it was top 5 class. These guys are entering their second years. So it's a real opportunity for some of these guys.
If you want to throw out names, I'll respond. Whatever you want.
Yeah. Okay. So let's throw out some names. I think first of all, let me start on a couple second-year guys on the defensive line. Really, a few second-year guys. Justin Scott,
Biggie,
who was a
Biggie,
five-star recruit last year. Biggie, and listen, I like what I see from him. I think he's going to step up. Armando Blunt, Bruce, is another one who's having a really good spring. Like he was only like 17 years old during the season last year. I think Armando Blunt is another one that really can and needs to step up this year.
Well, I don't know about needs to. He was young, inexperienced, undersized, but he's got a motor. So I think he's going to get spot duty, and I think he's going to cause some damage in the backfield. But next year is going to be his big year.
Yeah, it's
Because
true.
they bring in this guy Blay. What is he, a senior?
Yeah, he's a senior.
So he's a one and done. And, we talked about, I said this 2 years ago. I said it last year, not to toot my own horn, but I kept on saying Moten. Everybody thought that he stinks and he's just, practice fodder. But he turned it up. And he had some very good moments this past season. And I expect him to keep going because I always told he had to build for this. This is the kind of guy you need to develop to get in there, to do damage like Cortez and Russell and those guys. He's a big body guy. Well, if he continues on that same upward path, I expect him to play really well this year. And maybe because he's got another year, I think, after this, he could play himself into the NFL draft.
On the edge, a player, I haven't talked about him enough the last couple of weeks, and I probably should. What about Booker Pickett Jr., Bruce?
Yes.
I mean, he is someone who practices really well, played a little bit last year and had some impact when he did play. And to me, Pickett, I think, has one of the best motors on the team when it comes to a pass rusher. I think he's putting on the size that he needs, so he's not like a tweener between linebacker and edge anymore. I think Booker Pickett has a big opportunity.
Right. He has an opportunity to be in maybe even a starter next year because I don't know if Bain's going to be back, and I know Messidor can't be back
next year. Yeah.
So you got him, and you got Hayden Lowe. Those are two defensive ends that could wreak havoc in the backfield. I like those two guys, but there's no pressure on Lowe. He's only a freshman.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, you're mentioning guys that are in the prove it years. There's a lot of those prove it. You know who else has to prove it? I think the Saints. He has good games and he disappears. So if I'm looking at somebody, I think it's a prove it year because if he wants to get drafted, he has to be consistent. He can't be this inconsistent, missing tackles and then having a good game. And, this is a big year for him. But that's talking about money in the draft.
Right. And Basaint is the man this year in the linebacking core. I know he's not the oldest guy back there. Like Miami still has Jalen Alderman back from last year's, probably going to be like a veteran backup, and Chase Smith, another veteran backup. Basaint is going to be a starter, Bruce, and he's going to be the man. He's become more of a vocal leader last year into this year. So, this is a really important year for him to raise his stock.
And he's also getting mixed up in the middle, too. He's playing in the middle. He's a middle linebacker. So he's got a lot on his plate. I think that they could use him to replace Malinois, who was very inconsistent last year at best. Don't you agree? He was just he was shocking.
Yeah, he had a down year because he was so good in 2023. I don't know. I don't know what happened. I guess we'll just blame Guidry since he's not here anymore.
Well, you want to go to the offensive side to prove it?
Yeah, let's go to the offensive side. Ray Joseph, Bruce, is a big one, and I actually, small sample size because we're 1 week into spring practice because they're off this week for spring break, but I like the way that Ray was playing last week because I think he knows he's getting pushed. Like Malachi Toney is going to push him to try to take his spot or take reps away from him. And I think Ray so far early is showing signs of really rising to that occasion because it's like with Xavier Restrepo gone off to the NFL, that leaves a massive void because Restrepo was just magnificent, specifically the last 2 years, but for his entire career here.
Yeah, and you've got Ray, who's been here. This is his third season. And you got Malachi Toney, the true freshman. And what's interesting about Malachi is if you take Ray out and Malachi comes in, I don't think there's a drop-off at all. In fact, he probably has more breakaway speed than Ray. And he's shifty, too. So if you're using both of those guys in the slot, I have no problem with it, even though Malachi's inexperienced. Don't know if he could block, and that remains to be seen. But I'm happy about where they are in that slot right now. Now, the LSU kid's not here yet, so, I mean, I don't know much about him at all. I don't know if you do. I don't. And I know Josh Moore is doing really well. He's going to play a pivotal role. He's going to wind up replacing Horton, who it's a shame that we lost this kid because with Beck here now, he would have had a hell of a year, I think. But
he would have been the top guy, at least on paper. He would have been the top receiver here this year.
Yep. I don't know what's going to happen at Bama, nor do I care anymore because he's not here.
Well, I want to talk when we come back about the tight ends because there's at least one guy who's got a massive prove it year coming up, and a few more of the wide receivers, and a couple of the defensive backs as well. Because and guys, you can let us know in the comments below anyone we didn't mention or should mention entering prove it years at Miami, especially class of 2023, class of 2024. You want to keep it locked. We got the Truth Teller with us on a Truth Teller Tuesday. We're only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. The Armada Team of the Week is brought to you by our friends at Nissan and the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Each week, our Locked On College basketball experts are picking one team that stands apart. From top-seeded stars to the unprecedented upsets, these guys showcase the strength and sheer power needed to push their team forward. This week's Armada and clear-cut Team of the Week are the Duke Blue Devils. John Shire's team, led by National Player of the Year candidate Cooper Flagg, just ripped through the ACC, going 19-1. The Blue Devils were plus 434 points in ACC games, the largest point differential by a power conference team in league play since Kentucky in 1953-54. When it comes to the Nissan Armada, they say go forth and conquer, and that's exactly what the Duke Blue Devils have done here. It's clear that our Team of the Week is out here ready to conquer the road ahead with confidence, just like you can in the all-new Nissan Armada or any of Nissan's outstanding vehicles. Take the Nissan Armada, Rogue, or Pathfinder and go find your next big adventure. Shop nissanusa.com. Thank you for making this episode of Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. For your next listen, make sure you check out Locked On ACC. Kenton Gibbs and I, new episode last night into this morning. We take you through everything going on with the conference, from realignment rumors and the lawsuits getting settled to college basketball. Locked On ACC is available free wherever you get your podcasts and available free on YouTube. You know, Bruce, I got on a quick detour here. I'm pretty excited about the new basketball coach and about what I'm hearing about the investment that Miami is going to put into basketball NIL, because Jay Lucas mentioned when he was introduced yesterday, he's going to need to look for about 13 new players.
Wow.
And so, yeah, they're going to have to rebuild that entire basketball roster, and it seems like they're willing to put the money that it's going to take to do that.
Well, and he's the kind of guy that will bring in the recruits. So, yeah, go for it. Why not? I mean, spend the money.
Absolutely.
I mean, you know, I don't know. You may have it. And I asked you 2 weeks ago for a roster. I don't have it yet. But how many DBs are there, including the safeties? There are at least 12, maybe 14 of these guys. There's a lot of defensive backs on the roster.
Yeah, there's got to be, without having that number in front of me, it's got to be around that, Bruce. It is. I mean, Miami just brought in 5 transfer DBs and I think 4 new DBs in high school recruiting. 3 of them are on campus already. 1 isn't. So right there, that's 8 new guys plus the guys who are, it's got to be 12 to 14.
And that's the point. You know, we kind of mentioned the names like Poyser, maybe a starter. We don't know, too much about some of these other recruits. You mentioned, I watched your show from yesterday. The transfer from Wisconsin's probably going to be starting, with Roderick. So Frederick. So I think there's a bunch of names out there, and I haven't been out there to see them yet. You're out there. I don't know how closely you get to see them, but like in 2 or 3 weeks, we'll both be on the field watching the practice. So we'll see a little bit more. But listen, I'm not a DB's coach. I don't know what's going to happen with those guys. To me, there's like a dozen of them. Any one of them could win the starting jobs. I don't even know if OJ Frederick, he had a bad bowl game, I thought. I think a lot of people, he got burned. He got burned against Syracuse too, right?
Yeah, the Syracuse one for sure. I can't remember how. I mean, a lot of guys got burned in that bowl game. Gave up a lot of points.
Right. So I'm not sure he's a surefire starter. He still has to beat people out.
Yeah. And also, another one who he dealt with a lot of injury last year, as we know, but big year coming up for Damari Brown, Bruce. Having missed 95% of the season last year, all the new guys that have come in looking to take spots. So for Damari Brown this year, and he's one of those guys, was a 4-star recruit in the class of 2023. He's got a big opportunity, but I'm looking forward to seeing how he does.
Yeah. He played well last year. He should have his 1 foot up on anybody coming in. But if he's not healthy, and he's not healthy now, it gives other guys a chance to catch him or pass him on the depth chart. and it's tough to make up if you're not playing. But he's got the size too that we're looking for. Most of these guys, as you mentioned, have size now. They don't have these little guys.
Oh yeah.
You know, I thought you look at some of the guys that played last year; they were tiny. Porter, he was tiny.
Yeah.
So you can't go with that anymore, and they're doing the right thing. So if you're talking about guys that have to step up, it's the prove it year. A lot of those DBs, they're either going to make it and be a part of the two deep, or they're going to fall to the wayside and have to go someplace else.
You know, I'm thinking about all the guys that they have in the DB room now, and I think there's from what I can think of, there's only one guy who's smaller than 6 feet, and that's 5'11" Charles Brantley. I think everyone else, I think everybody else in the DB room is 6 foot or taller, which is just a nice luxury to have big DBs who theoretically can move well, right?
Yeah.
So that's
not only are they over 6 foot, but they're probably close to 190 to 200 pounds instead of 170 pounds.
Yeah.
Which those guys, you know, they get run over, they get trucked a lot. So look, doesn't mean they're going to be able to cover. But again, everything to me predicates on what the front four does. And I listen, I have a hard time believing that between Jason Taylor and Damian Lewis, these guys aren't going to be significantly better. Yeah. No offense to the other guys, but I just seem to think that they're going to be better. And of course, it looks like Bain's got a chip on his shoulder. Yeah, he's not happy at all.
Yeah. And he's lost some weight. I had a guy, and I think it's a great thing. Like, he's down already about 10 pounds. He wants to get lighter. You know, he's probably came to realize he got a little too heavy last year. And I don't know whose idea that was. I don't know if it was his idea to put on weight or the coaches or what, but I think we have learned that him being probably in the 260 range rather than the 280 range is probably about the right weight for him. So we'll see how that works out.
270, but you know what? In this defense, it's not about bull rushing people. It's about speed. He lost some speed. Yeah, he's trying to gain it back. He'll gain it back, and that's what gets people into the backfield. Not that you're just bigger and you can bully people, because that's not Miami's front four defensive scheme anyhow. So and that's why they've always been good. They had quick guys, and as soon as the ball was snapped, 2 or 3 of them are already in the backfield. I don't know much about Blay. He's a bigger guy, but he had 6.5 sacks. So I'm assuming he's got some moves to get back there. Look, it's early. We're in March, for goodness sakes, to predict what's going to happen in 5 months. But I'm very excited about how this is all going to come together, because I seemingly trust Heatherman. And I think he's got the concepts, the schemes, and the coaches. And I'm hoping the players to make it happen. Everybody I talk to, when I talk to Damian, I talk to this one now, they all say the same thing. You have to have dogs. DAWGS. Does Miami have dogs? You'd like to think Scott is a dog. Like to think Blay is a dog. You know, Bain is a dog. Messidor. We need these other guys to step up. I think Blunt's got the mentality for that. And Moten showed last year he had a couple of little fights, he pushing and shoving, which I like. You have to have an attitude, chip on your shoulder, play the game like, you know, there's no tomorrow. And that's what you want from Miami. Let it all out. Go after these guys. Stop laying down on the floor, hand fighting with the offensive linemen. And any quarterback we played looked like a Heisman Trophy winner last year. Am I wrong?
Right.
Guys that we
you're not.
He can run, but he can't pass. Baloney, they picked us apart.
We had for Fernando Mendoza, we put that guy on like first round NFL watch list for next year. Like, did you notice, like, after last season, Mendoza's still in college, he transferred to Indiana, but the former Cal quarterback, I started to read like, oh, way too early NFL 2026 draft. Fernando Mendoza, first round pick. Like, what?
First round.
He had a great game against Miami.
Yeah, well, anybody could have. Anybody could have. All you have to do is take the snap, pump fake, they'll bite, and just throw the ball. That's all. That's what it seemed like last year. It just seemed like no matter what the down and distance was, we weren't off the field yet. We were just never off the field quickly. And again, a lack of turnovers. Can you imagine our offense with more balls, possessions, midfield or beyond? How many points we would have scored? And that's why I say this year we may score points cheaply, as opposed to these 80-yard drives all the time that Cam Ward, directed. I just think we're going to be a more balanced team. I don't know about special teams yet, but I think we're going to be more balanced defensively and offensively.
Well, and on offense, because I wanted to get to that big prove it year. And when I say prove it year, I don't mean it in a negative way, just so people know. Like, I'm not saying, oh, these guys need to finally show us something. In a few cases, maybe, but this is a big year for Elijah Lofton, Bruce, because he's probably going to get the keys to be tight end one and to replace most of Elijah Arroyo's production from last year. And Elijah Lofton, different kind of player than Arroyo being longer, but Lofton is just more versatile. You can line him up in more different spots. And I think Lofton's going to have a big year and score a lot of touchdowns this year.
I like to think so. And I also know that when we looked at Georgia the year before last, when they had Bauer and Beck, not this past year, but the year before, wow, Brock Bowers. Now, this guy could be the same thing. He's got a lot of talent. He can go down the field. He's got some speed. He's tough. He's very physical, Lofton, really physical. So, yeah, you might be right. He's got some competition, but I don't think Bauman's like a receiver that much. You got shot to be able to get down.
He's a good red zone guy. Bauman had pretty good touchdown and receiving stats. I think he can do some stuff in the red zone.
So did McCormick. For a guy that didn't have that many catches, but he got a few balls in that. He caught the first one against the Gators.
I think if there's anybody who's more of like mostly a blocking tight end, we'll see how much Luke Nichols' brother, how much he gets on the field, because he's very much like a prototypical blocking type of tight end. So we'll see Jack Nickel. We'll see how much he plays this year. And then, another one, this is we'll see if he can finally get on the field. Jackson Carver, who's entering his third year, Bruce, he's put on some weight, which is important for him, because I think he was a little bit too, in previous years, maybe a little bit too light and a little bit too raw. It looks like Carver has built up his body. And so, I'd love to see him. And Miami's got a big tight end rotation, because I think Brock Schott is going to get on the field this year as a true freshman. But we'll see how much Jackson Carver gets on the field, because he's entering his third year now. With the program.
Well, he kind of followed in Riley Williams' footsteps. Riley went from year one to year two. He got bigger and stronger, and he had a pretty decent season. So I agree. Jackson Carver is an athlete. Wasn't he a basketball player in high school too?
I think hockey and lacrosse. He was.
Whatever it was other than football. But that's an athlete.
Yeah.
Right. That's what we need.
Yeah. And I think he's a pilot. Like he flies planes. He plays hockey. He plays football. I mean, maybe he's got to get rid of those hobbies and just focus on football.
No, I think he'll have a better year this year. I don't know if he's got any pressure on him, because nobody expects much. But you know what? He is talented enough. He could be good. He could help us. What's the transfer portal needs? Are we going for another break?
Yeah, no, let's talk about transfer portal needs on the other side. And I also I want to talk about a certain recruiting situation that people have been freaking out about for the past 24 hours with another Miami legacy. So you want to strap in for that, and you want to keep it locked right here. We're not done yet on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. Attention, Locked On Canes fans. Ever wish you could directly support your favorite Hurricanes athletes and be part of their journey? Now you can with Roy, the NIL app that puts fans in control. Before Roy, NIL deals were often handled behind closed doors, and fans like you didn't have a clear way to directly support the players you love. Now with Roy, you can make a real impact and feel closer to the athletes representing Miami. With Roy, you get to choose the player you want to support, decide how much you want to contribute, and get exclusive content straight from the athletes you back. The best part, if your player transfers, you get your money back. So it's a risk-free way to show your support and make your voice heard. Support your favorite players directly and help shape the future of Hurricane sports. Download the Roy app now from the App Store and start backing Miami athletes the way they deserve, with transparency, trust, and real impact. This is the future of college sports. Join it now by downloading Roy and supporting your favorite players. Thank you for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. For your next listen, make sure you check out Locked On College Basketball. Isaac Shade and Andy Patton will have you ready to fill out your brackets. They'll have you through the ACC tournament and the conference tournament starting today. I'll be watching some ACC tournament action later. Isaac Shade and Andy Patton will have you covered. But here on Locked On Canes, it is a Truth Teller Tuesday. Bruce Warner is with us. All right, so Bruce, one of the things that I'm feeling a little bit comforted about wide receiver, seeing some guys step up, and we're yet to really get a look at CJ Daniels, who is an experienced guy transferring it. I would not mind if they go out and get like one more, hopefully big name receiver in the portal, but I'm very encouraged with the way JoJo Trader, Josh Moore, Malachi Toney, Ray Joseph, and so on have been performing, which is great. But I was going to say I don't want to waste the 1 year with Carson Beck, but I should say I want to maximize the season with Carson and give him as many weapons as we can.
I mean, he's out there. He's doing handoffs. He's going through the fakes and whatever. But I said this a few weeks ago, and I'll say it again. I'm not a doctor. I hope what they're doing is right. We cannot afford him to re-injure himself in any way, shape, or form. We can't afford that. And, I look at my Yankees and I see Garrett Cole's out for this year and maybe half of next year. I don't know. So this kid had an injury. I know the doctors really examined this kid and they pretty much said, hey, he's going to be okay. I kept on thinking, I think you did too, he won't be there until like May or June. But he's really there now, and he's going through some of this stuff.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And he's doing the exercises and whatever stretching things they're doing, and he's got the playbook. And so that's good. I think he's advanced, but I'm just hoping there's no setbacks with this kid. That's all.
Yeah. Shannon Dawson on Friday was very complimentary about Beck, doing everything he's able to do, right? He's physically not cleared to throw, but he's doing everything, including team building stuff and building rapport with his teammates, which is important. Other Miami players like Mark Fletcher and as Cooper speak very highly of what Beck has done since he arrived. So yeah, I'm with you on that. Maybe Miami goes out and grabs another receiver. I think obviously Miami is stacked, Bruce, at running back, maybe just to get another body in there, like not go out and get somebody like you don't need another Damian Martinez because you're good there with Fletcher and Lyle at the top, and you've got a little depth behind those guys. But maybe just to get another body.
In their right mind would come here expecting to be a starter. You'd have to be out of your mind.
Yeah, like you would expect. You'd get like another. You remember Lucius Stanley from a couple of years ago. Get another guy like that from a smaller school.
Well, that Walden kid was pretty good.
Yeah, he's still here. He's actually doing pretty well. He's a walk-on, I think.
Right,
still
but he was pretty good.
He's a good player. Yeah, Terrell Walden's a good player for sure. For sure.
All right. So what's bothering you?
I think we could still we got so many corners. I think we're probably good at corner. I think we could probably still use another safety, right? Because I'm encouraged by the way Dylan Day has been playing. He's still very young. Zaquan Patterson, I think it's going to be great here, but he's still young. Markeith Williams, Zechariah Poyser's doing well, but I still think they could use another safety and maybe another linebacker. I think are the other spots we could use somebody in the portal.
Yeah, but it'll all work itself out. All right. So what was the other thing you wanted to discuss?
Well, so I people are freaking out over the last couple days about legacy recruits, right? I mean, Miami is, so it's not signing day yet, but Miami has so far missed out on Grant Wise, son of Ty Wise, who committed a couple days ago to Clemson. Clemson just had their big recruiting weekend, and it sounds like Dabo Swinney nailed it. Like he nailed his pitch there. He gets Grant Wise. Although, full disclosure, from a Miami side, I never really felt like Grant Wise was like a lock to Miami. I'm not making excuses. I'm just telling it like it is. I have, though, Bruce, at times really felt like another 2026 offensive lineman and legacy Cannon Pickett, son of Booker Pickett Sr. I have at times felt like Cannon is a lock. And Cannon was also on that weekend visit to Clemson. He has not committed there or anywhere yet, but he did get a Steve Wiltfong crystal ball to land at Clemson. Are people freaking out about this too much that we may lose two legacies here to Clemson?
Well, it seems like it. If you look at some of these sites, that's what they're talking about. And I know that my friend, his father, listens to the show and watches the show. And I did talk to him.
Booker Sr. is the freaking man, by the way. We love him.
Well, he calls us family, so I feel like we're family. And that's his family. Booker went up there to Clemson with his son, And he came back, and I asked him point blank, what's going on? He didn't commit to them. Other people did. He didn't.
Right.
He had a good time. There's nothing to lie about. I went up there. It was great. Facility's great. We met Dabo. He's like a snake oil salesman, but whatever. He didn't say
you
that.
said he didn't say that.
My
You did,
words,
right?
not Booker's words.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, those are your words about this.
Yeah, those are my words. Anyway, but he hasn't committed yet. He says he's going to commit in the summer. And people are also claiming that he's out there like whoring around, trying to just, make a name for himself. And no, he's a kid. Let him take his visits. Yeah. I'm not worried. You don't see me worried about it. He's going to make an announcement this summer. Do I think he's coming to Miami? Of course I do. Now, I said the same thing about DJ Pickett, but that was a cousin, not a child, not a son. Big difference. He's not involved, and now he's involved. This is his own flesh and blood. So do I think he's going to Clemson? Absolutely not. Could he? Of course he could. I can't make up his mind for him or the father, but I'm pretty confident he's going to be here. In the summer, he'll make the announcement. Let him have his visits. Let him have everybody just offer him this and offer him that. The bottom line is I think he's wanted to be a Cane his entire life.
Yeah.
So I don't think he's going anywhere else. But you can't get who did that? Wilt Fong?
Wilt Fong.
How does he do that? How does he went there? How do you give him because he said it was a good visit?
He probably talked to Dabo, and Dabo said, "We're getting all these. Everybody who was here. We're getting all of them." Is probably what.
No,
Dabo
I know there was some quote from Cannon that he had a good time.
Yeah, sure.
And it's something to consider. And none of that's not true.
Yeah. I mean, listen. Sometimes this stuff happens. Like a couple of years ago, Reuben Bain at one point was crystal balled to go to Auburn.
Right.
So sometimes a guy has a really good visit, and the recruiting analysts react to that accordingly. So
but when you speak to the relatives, like we spoke to Tolbert, we had Tolbert on the show, and I asked Tolbert point blank, when did your cousin decide to go to Miami? He said at birth. Well, that takes care of that. That for his whole life he wants to be here, and now he's not going to be here. Please, it doesn't work like there's legacies, and I would say we get most of them.
Yeah,
unless of course they're not good enough. Like I know Russell. I talked to Russell Merrill, and Russell was somewhat disappointed that he didn't really get the offer he wanted from Miami. He wound up going to SMU. He was pretty good.
RJ
Merrill, he got hurt last year, but he was pretty good. So you can't always have what you want.
Yeah, no, for sure. And another one, it's not a legacy, but a player I really hope Miami can land who loves the Canes is Derek Cooper, the top running back from Chaminade. And it's funny because his mom, who loves Miami, is going to have a big time input in his decision. Cooper told one of the recruiting sites this week that schools are like recruiting his mom more than they're recruiting him because they know how important mom is.
I think Brian said that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I hear Georgia is the number one competition, and I can see him going up there. We've lost kids though. They lost somebody, Michelle, and a few guys we lost to go up there. So, but I don't know much about him. I don't know where his head is at. But if his mom is big on this, no, you're staying home. That should have a pretty good impact.
Well, and I know it seems like Cooper grew up a Miami fan because he put out a picture of himself at like 4 or 5 years old throwing up the U. Yeah. So, I mean, hopefully between mom and between his old school love for Miami, that could happen. But man, we always have a great time when the truth teller is on.
This is who I want. I don't mean to interrupt, but I wanted to say one more. The one recruit, the legacy I want is Devin Hester's kid. That's who I want. In the 7th grade, he ran like some ridiculous amount of speed.
What grade is he in now?
He's probably 9th or 10th.
Okay. All right.
But that's the guy I want because this kid, if he's anything like his father, look out.
Don't let him go to Clemson. Dabo's watching this. He's like, I got to dial up Hester's kid now.
I seriously doubt that Hester's kid would go play there when his father's such a legacy here. It's not even funny. He's the greatest return man, as far as I'm concerned, in the history of college and pro football.
Yes. Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
In the history of it, right.
He's got records as a returner that'll probably never be broken, honestly.
Anyway, it was great being here. We had a lot of fun. Now, next week, I think I'm going to bring in, I talked to you about it, a friend of mine, Dave Heffernan, who played on the offensive line in the early 80s when Howard was here. and his quarterback, Jim Kelly.
Jim Kelly.
And he'll talk about how it really started, which was really before Bertie and the 83-84 team. This was the foundation for those guys because Jim Kelly was the quarterback. So we'll talk to Dave next week, and we'll talk about the history of where this all started and go from there, which is fun to talk about.
It. I can't wait. He's going to be a good guest, and I've met him before.
Guest.
He's pals with Don Bailey Jr. So I know
they were both
I've
on
met
the
him
line together. They were both there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, those are my guys. Bruce Warner, awesome job. Thank you guys for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. Make sure to smash that like button and subscribe to Locked On Canes. Subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your pods. And we'll talk to you again tomorrow. We're going to have the recruiting overlord, Brian Smith, on tomorrow on another episode of Locked On Canes. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.